Welcome to some more Mailbag. Remember, these are questions and comments you leave on the channel. I'm doing my humble best to try and answer them. So, the first one for this Mailbag segment comes from Evan North, and he says, what sort of sequencer does the XM have in response to my not quite 909 Sunday morning rant I did several weeks back, well actually nearly 2 months ago now. This is a very interesting question, actually, because, again, this is another piece of information that seems to be completely devoid from the Roland specifications on the website. So, the only thing I can say about this is that Roland have made, or there's been several comments around the sequencer, and as far as I can tell, it is a 16-point step sequencer. I don't think it's very intelligent, and I think what you do is I think it works the same way as some other products are now in the Roland families. It works on the sort of the step scene type thing where you stitch scenes together to give you the sequences. But other than that, it is not a sequencer as you would have it on some other machines. It is very much, as far as I can tell, a step sequencer, as in you can program 16 steps, very similar to the ARIA, the TR8, TR8S boutique stuff, which is all done in this sort of 16-step sequence method. And the Jupiter XM definitely seems to be like that. Now, again, I haven't managed to get down to the toy shop to actually have a play with the XM yet, so this is all going from what I've seen other people do when they've demoed the XM. Hopefully in the next week or so I will go and have a play of the XM and understand exactly what it can do and cannot do for myself. But that's a different kettle of fish. On the positive side, of course, it does have Bluetooth, and you know guys love Bluetooth. Next one comes from Rob A, and he says, I can't part with my Korg T1 either. Still like new, holds up to the most other master weighted 88s after 30 years. You know what, there's very little you can say about that. Again, this is sort of to do with the comments I made on the not quite 999 day SMR. Well, as you know, I bought my T1 a couple of years back and I've restored it to rude health. And I was actually completely rapt to pick one up because I've seen these really expensive in the past, and I just love this thing. And it was for me, this was a road trip down to the south coast to pick it up. So whether you use this thing as a master keyboard or a synthesizer, it doesn't matter. As an 88 key keyboard, it is superb. The weighting is nice, the playability is gorgeous, and it actually has on the back of it 2 MIDI slots, so there are actually 2 MIDI outs on this keyboard, so you can zone and control other keyboards via MIDI. As I've said before, you can't use it as a DAW controller because it doesn't do DAW functions, but if you want something that is a playability MIDI controller, this thing is superb. Next one from my friend Bruce. He basically says your audio quality has changed in relation to the Mailbag that went up a couple of weeks ago. And a number of other people have commented about the audio quality of recent rants and mailbags. Now, I have to be brutally honest and say I've had some real problems. I was basically forced to change the microphone setup. I used to use a lapel mic, and I sort of had all the settings set for a lapel mic, and then of course I went and broke the lapel mic, and that caused me all kinds of problems. I've also switched editing software in the background as well. So I used to use one editing suite. I've now moved to a different editing suite because I want more functions effectively when I'm editing. And I've really struggled quite a lot with the sort of whole audio side of the editing software. I don't know what it is, but for some reason something didn't gel in here when I've been doing the editing, and it has led to some of the audio quality going astray. Now I think I have managed to solve that. I've also managed to solve the settings issue in terms of the microphone, as in using this or another lapel mic I've got. I've also got a Rode microphone which I'm not using for this because I'm using this face mic, which I kind of find is better for doing this sort of stuff. And of course, the problem is with each one of these microphone systems that you set up, the settings have to be changed. And somewhere down the line, the settings got all completely out of kilter, which caused me no end of problem. In fact, I actually had to go back and re-record a whole raft of videos because the volume or the audio capture was so abysmal. And as I say, it's taken me a long while to actually get, it is quite sad for somebody who basically records music. It's taken me so long to actually get on top of what was causing the problem. But I think I've now cracked it. If the audio quality is still poor, I am tinkering with the audio quality each time I record a video to try and sort of stabilize it, but it is a combination of changing lots of things in a very short space of time that has caused me to have real problems with the audio quality, but hopefully that's fixed. And the last one from another constructive commentator on the channel, from Gary Robinson. He writes, I finally managed to track down a second Roland MX-1 for my UK studio. Strangely enough, I've been having problems with it that I never experienced with my setup back in Mexico. For some reason, every time I power on my new MX-1 here in the UK, I have to change the sampling rate before it will work. If it's already set to 44.1, I have to change it to 44.8. I think he means I have to change it to 48. Before it will work, and vice versa. My setup here in the UK is identical to my studio in Mexico. I'm working with Cubase 9.5, 9.5 with Complete Audio 6 as my audio interface, which I connect to the MX-1 via coax cable. I thought I would mention this in case any other viewers on the channel are having the same problem with the MX-1. So this in relation to the DX7 Mailbag I did back at the beginning of this month. Actually, it was the beginning of the 6th of November. Do you know what? That is really interesting and peculiar in its own way. And as I say, I'm assuming you mean you're switching from 44.1 to 48 kilohertz, because 44.8 is not supported on the interface. So I just assume that's just a typo. Couple of noddy questions. I'm assuming you're going into the settings and you've got the settings set to 48 kilohertz for the UK. The other thing is, what is the sampling rate the other side? So if you've got your MX-1 set to 48 kilohertz, have you got your DAW set to 44 kilohertz in terms of if the MX-1 is sending it across at 48 kilohertz, is your DAW receiving at the same rate? So if there's any settings in the setup, so I don't know whether you're using a Mac or you're using a Windows PC, but if there are any settings there that are actually setting the sampling rate that it is receiving information from the MX-1 and they're out of kilter, so they're set to 48 and set to 44.1, it's possible you've got a settings mismatch, which is why it's not working. So have a check of the settings on the way through. I know in Ableton there is a setting in Ableton that allows you to change the sampling rate to 44.1, 48, and 96. So I know if you get that wrong, the whole thing doesn't seem to work properly. So that's a point where you might want to look. The other noddy question, of course, is you are using the latest version of the MX-1 firmware, which is 1.05. There is nothing in the update history to suggest they've made tinkerings with the sound rate, the sampling rate, but it is possible that there has been a tinkering, and therefore you maybe need to be on the latest version of the firmware to fix the issue. And the last one, and this is the daftest question, is in settings, have you gone into settings and changed the settings permanently to 48 kilohertz, so you don't have to keep doing it on a every time you go into it basis? But other than that, if you're still having issues with it, it would be interesting what Roland Tech Support have to say about it, because I can't see any reason why that would happen. I personally think, and I've seen this before, it's a mismatch. And this is something that's sort of general to people on the, who are using this sort of stuff. If you are sending information from one source to another source and you're sending out different sampling frequency, it will not work. And if on both sides, you need both sides set at the same sampling frequency. Otherwise, you end up with sort of this mismatch going on. So that's sort of a general thing to take away from this. Whether that's the issue in this particular case, I don't know. But hopefully, Gary, you can keep us updated and tell us how you've managed to solve it, if you managed to solve it. Remember, hit that like button if you like what you saw. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified about more rants, more mailbag, more questions and answers, and more videos about this sort of stuff when it's loaded to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.